School से आ रहे हैं. Yeah, difficult to get to those levels. Okay.
Yeah, almost done. We'll begin with some kirtan. Sure.
Everyone is very quiet today on Friday. That means it's too cold. Yeah. Last week. That was a nice weather. Also, recently I have realized that nowadays in 1 week so much happens. I mean, it work by it was working outside. It just feel like the world is running at much faster pace. Like, so much, like, so much is going on. Not worth it. So much drama. Yeah.
She was supposed to come, but
Oh, this is Nirvana. This is work.
yeah.
Stay away from all the noise.
Yes.
What was that controller and input? Okay, so did they play a video? Stop watching the news. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's great that everyone was able to find this address. Oh, yes. I will turn on the mic. Welcome. It's great that everyone was able to find the address and reach here. So we'll begin with some quick glorification of Lord Krishna. This is a simple prayer where some wonderful names and qualities of Lord Krishna enumerated. So please repeat after me. And while we are singing, you may even actually music is something so wonderful. Anything sound can be produced in any ways. When we hit some object, it produces sound. In fact, there are so many unlimited types of musical instruments possible. And in glorification of God, there's one very simple instrument we have been given. Doesn't need much. Yeah, simply clapping our hands. Thank you, Anilji. So please feel free to clap your hands when we sing. And please repeat after me. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Now we'll sing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra a few times, and you may clap along with the kartals, so we can be in sync. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Entire mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you everyone for participating in the kirtan. Chanting God's names is a very purifying process. Purifies our mind, uplifts our consciousness. So yeah, it's always wonderful to begin with chanting God's names. So thank you for joining us. Today we see some new faces. First of all, Mataji, your good name?
Jyoti Ishwaran.
Jyoti Ishwaran. Welcome. Namaste. Are you here with someone?
She's my mother-in-law.
Okay.
They're visiting.
Oh, I see. Nice. Warm welcome to you. And your good name, sir?
Arvind.
Arvind. Okay. Nice to meet you. Are you here with someone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. So nice to have you here. Welcome. Welcome. Okay, so we'll get started with our session for today. Yeah. So we are on the 7th session now. In the first 5 sessions, we saw how. Oh, do you hear some echo? Is the sound okay?
Everyone be able to see that. Maybe how should I move?
Actually, I'll move. It's okay. I'll move there. I can see it.
So, yeah, now we are on the 7th session. So, in the first 5 sessions, it was more or less about us and our predicament in this world, what's happening in this world, and who we are. So, if you see carefully, now the approach we are taking is we first began by discussing about our status quo in this world, that we are all happiness seeking beings. But somehow we face obstructions in our search for happiness. But who essentially are we? That was session 2. And then we saw that we are not this body, we are the Atma. This
Very cool. Is it okay if I open?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You the heater also on.
Yeah, I kept the heater on, so we are on.
Then close it thinking.
No, why you have to open?
The heater will actually.
Little ventilation or you are not in
Ventilation. So the heater will that means you'll open it.
I'll open little, but yeah.
No, you open it again.
No, I think I do. Okay.
Yeah, so by the way, a warm welcome to our dear friend Govind ji. He is a spiritual practitioner. He does wonderful kirtans, and we are good friends from the ISKCON temple. So, yeah, in the first 5 sessions, it was more or less about us and our status quo in this world. So we saw how we are happiness-seeking beings, but yeah, we don't always find happiness in this world. And then in the second session, we discussed who we essentially are. Are we just a bunch of chemicals, or are we something beyond? And we saw how Lord Krishna, right in the beginning, he informs us through Arjun. He's informing everyone that we are not this temporary body made of chemicals. We are the Atma, a spiritual being who is living within the body. And then in the third session, we saw that we are not even the mind, and neither are we the intelligence. So we saw how mind, intelligence, and another element called false ego, they make up our subtle body. And yeah, we are not even that. The Atma is even beyond the subtle body. And in the fourth session, we saw how in this world, we are governed by some modes called Sattvagun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. Yeah. So there are 3 modes that govern us. Is there some? Okay. So we saw that there are 3 modes that govern our activities in this world. And then in the 5th session, we saw how there are, for living entities in this material realm, there are laws called the laws of.
This should be fine.
Yeah. There are laws called the laws of karma that determine our action and reaction, basically nature's reward system. Now we began we are taking a bottom-up approach, beginning from the bottom and now going upward Okay, but then what is the root cause? Where have we come from? So the previous session and this session, they're closely connected because we are moving upward now, talking about higher spiritual realities. Well, we are the Atma, but where have we come from? Why are we in this world? Why are we trapped in this cycle of birth and death? So in the last session, we began by asking this question, where is our real home? Where have we come from? Now, in this world, we may have our home, and it's nice to have a home. We feel comfortable, peaceful at our own home. But yet, can we call this material realm as our home? The scriptures inform us, well, this material realm, this realm of matter is not our real home. Why? Because at our home, we expect to be completely comfortable. Imagine going to a company where one could be evicted out at any time. Would we call such a place as home? Not really. So similarly, in this material world, there's one verse in scriptures, in Bhagavatam specifically, where it says, Sarvato Mrityur. All living entities in this material world, they are surrounded by death all around. Sarvato Mrityur. So, yeah, a place where death can come to us at any time. Almost it's like a sword hanging over our head. Anytime it could come without a notice. Such a place cannot be the real home for the Atma. Now, yeah, someone may say, okay, well, but sometimes one may die peacefully. Death may come in different forms. Peaceful death is not the most dreadful one, but there are even more dreadful versions of death. Say, somebody dies young, that death is more painful than somebody dying at the fair old age. Or somebody dying because of somebody else's mistake in an accident. That's even more painful. One may keep blaming that other person throughout life. And even worse, if a near and dear one is murdered by someone else. So death may come in various forms, and it is certainly painful. Though there may be gradations, but even if it is peaceful, it is still painful. So because death means our complete identity is taken away from us. So such a place cannot really be called one's home. So this material realm, which is controlled by the time factor, is not the real home for the Atma. So where is the real home? So in this connection, we began with a discussion. There are three kinds of philosophies in connection with this material realm. Certain types of philosophies, they call this material world as the all in all. It is the absolute. There's no other home. This is our only home. You only have, welcome. You only have one life, just enjoy it. This is our only home. You have no other chance. You are just a bunch of chemicals. Just live life full size, just do it. And whatever makes you feel pleasurable, whatever you find pleasurable, just go with that. This is one type of philosophy that says matter is absolute. Then there are other types of philosophies that say matter is all illusion. This material world is not our home, and other than that, there's no home. Everything is illusion. The goal is just to annihilate one's existence. There are certain philosophies that come in this category. But what is the Gita's proposition? The Gita neither says that this material realm is our home, nor does it say that we have no home. The Gita says this material realm is a reflection of our real home. What does it mean by reflection? It looks like our real home, but it's not. It has some characteristics, just like a reflection has some characteristics of something that exists in reality, but still it's not that real thing. So we discussed this analogy of a banyan, an upside down banyan tree on the bank of a river, or you can consider any fruit tree. In the water body, you'll see reflection of that tree. You may see some nice mangoes hanging there. Now, if we jump into that water body, trying to get something out of that reflection, thinking that reflection to be the real thing, thinking that if from this reflection I can get real mangoes, then one will be disappointed. When one jumps into that water body, hoping to get some mangoes from there, all one can get is some debris or some floating dry leaves on the river or whatever water body it is. So from the reflection, we cannot get the real stuff. So for us, the Atma, every Atma, in fact, is looking for unlimited joy and uninterrupted joy, and joy at all times, and not just minute quantities of joy, minute and flickering quantities of joy. We are looking for joy, unlimited joy at all times. But that product is not available in this reflection. But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's there somewhere. And Krishna calls that reality as our real home. Krishna calls it the spiritual world. And we saw that in this material world, there are anxieties, difficulties, challenges. Therefore, this world is given a name. It is called Kuntha, which means a place of difficulties, challenges, miseries. So what is the opposite of that? What do you think the spiritual world is called? Vaikuntha. Yes, a place of no miseries. It's the real, and Krishna says that is the real home of the Atma. Krishna says, Tad Dhamma Paramam Mama. Krishna says, that is my home, and you are all a part of that home. And in today's session, we are going to see how the purpose why God incarnates, descends into this world, is to call us back to our real home, to call each one of us back, not just Hindus or whatever be one's designations. Yeah, God descends to call everyone back. Yes.
So we normally associate Vaikuntha with like after death, right? So does it mean that you have to be like physically not present in this world to go to Vaikuntha? Is it mutually exclusive, or can you be experiencing Vaikuntha in this physical world?
Oh yeah, wonderful question. So yeah, Vaikuntha is it's a very actual realm as well, where one can go after leaving one's body. But even before leaving one's body, in consciousness, one can reach there. When one develops such a high state of consciousness, or in other words, we have discussed what is called true ego, when one attains that state, when one realizes one's position as the Atma in connection with the Supreme Atma or Param Atma. We are going to discuss that. So yeah, today's session will connect all the dots. Whatever we have discussed so far, everything, you will see it connects together, because we are going upward to that highest reality, how everything began, and at least why did we come to this world? This question will be answered. And yeah, you may feel the pace of today's session a little fast, just like the previous session, because we were hoping to have 9 sessions, but somehow it looks like we may just have 8 sessions. Next session may be the last session. So because one session we had in San Jose, it was Ramayana related, that was more impromptu. So we are fitting in 4 sessions material into 3 sessions. So you may find the pace a little faster. And while I personally really love discussions, Q&A and comments and reflections from everyone, but in today's session, maybe there'll be specific places where we will pause for Q&A and even reflections. And besides that, if there are any questions that are not so connected with today's session, rather questions that are tangential, we could take them offline. Okay. But if you anytime want me to repeat something, I'll always be happy to. Please do let me know. Okay. So yeah, we saw that there are these three types of philosophies that say matter is absolute. Matter is absolute. Second was matter is all illusion. And third, that is the Gita's proposition that says this material realm is a reflection of our real home. Now, in this connection, we in the previous session, we did have some discussion on this, but in today's session, we will expand a little more on that. We are still discussing the previous session, but elaborating a little more on some topic. So now, these theories that fit into this category, the matter is absolute. This material realm is the only reality. Our existence is just composed of some chemicals, some neurons shooting signals from here and there, some electrochemical signals passing within the body, and that's all our existence is made up of. All the emotions we feel, the love we may feel towards someone, it's all about chemicals. So these kind of philosophies are basically atheistic in nature. They don't agree. They don't talk about anything beyond our bodily existence, and neither do they acknowledge the presence of any divine entity or a divine brain from whom everything has come. So now, and in today's times, such theories are often seen as these scientific theories. Now, here comes one question. Is being atheistic really equal to being scientific? Do you think those who believe in God, actually, does God exist is also a big topic. In some Gita in a Nutshell series, we spend one entire topic for it. But in our current series, we are just discussing it because everyone here, it appears more or less, you do acknowledge the existence of a supreme entity. So we are not taking one full dedicated session on that. We will just be discussing some major points that can help us become convinced and not be afraid of sometimes, theists may think that, oh, atheism is more scientific, so let me rather hide myself, or in front of atheists, let me not speak up anything and let me just nod my head and say yes to whatever they are saying because they are scientific. I'm not so scientific. These don't have to be afraid like that. We can be bold. We can boldly present our stance. Why we think this is logical. Why we think that the existence of a supreme being is perfectly logical according to us. So, how many of you think that being atheistic is equal to being scientific? Yeah, and okay, then would someone like to give just 1 or 2 points if someone would like to say it's not really equal to being scientific? Why do you think so?
Atheists generally say that they are more rational, right? They prefer to say that they are, analyze everything in a rational standpoint and don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, somehow atheism manages to show that science is on our side. The flag of science flutters on our side, and you guys are unscientific. All rationality is on my side, and you guys are unscientific. But is it really so? Actually, atheism is also a form of belief. It is a form of faith. If you see, while atheism may blame theism to have faith in some divine entity who you guys haven't seen God, nobody has seen God. So, yeah, you are just putting some blind faith. Well, sir, one could question atheism that you too have put faith in something or the other. And what has atheism put faith in? Some random reactions that have happened over millions of years. Yeah, because that also boils down to faith in some random reactions which are unprovable and which are mentioned, which are proposed as if they happened over millions of years. We are not saying it happened overnight. It took millions of years, Baba. Once some someone I was having a conversation with was kind of trying to convince me like that. I'm not saying it happened overnight, it took millions of years. Now they fall into the same trap as the same kind of fingers that atheism may point toward theism, that you haven't seen God. Same fingers could be pointed toward atheism as well. Neither have you seen the millions of years that you claim that some reactions happened randomly over. So, yeah, fine. We may not be able to change somebody, and we don't even want to forcefully change someone, but yet at least we can present a cogent argument that atheism is also a form of belief. Now, as far as science is concerned, science is the art of manipulating matter, taking elements of the nature, combining them in certain ways, studying them, manipulating them, and creating some amenities out of them, like creating this TV, laptop, iPhone, Android phone, whatever. It's an art of manipulating matter. Now, do atheists have complete monopoly over this art? No, theists also are equally capable of doing that. In fact, in any field, if you see science, technology, you'll almost see an equal mix of theists, atheists. With times, the proportions may change, but yeah, theists are equally capable of studying science, applying science, and so on. So, this argument that all rationality and science is on our side, it's not really it doesn't have a strong foundation. And then, whether atheistic or theistic theories, all of these have a why behind all whys. Whether you question theism or atheism, say you're talking about atheism. Now, atheism may present some things by taking shelter of some scientific arguments. But if we keep questioning them further, deeper and deeper, why this, behind all whys, if we keep asking, they'll reach one why behind all whys, which is sort of, they also have no proper explanation for. Say, for example, some theories say there was a dot and it exploded. Big Bang theory, the famous Big Bang theory. And that's the why behind all whys, the cause of all causes. So, but then again, we can bring up this question. Well, then where did the dot come from? How did that come into existence? And why did it have to explode at some point? Did it feel like itching somewhere, or what happened? Why did it explode? Why? No answer. So it happened over millions of years, Baba. We are not saying it happened overnight. So yeah, then there are some theories that say, well, matter has always existed. At some point, it began going through some random reactions, and then life was created somehow through random reactions. Now, isn't that also a form of faith? So why is it difficult to put faith? Now, whether theism or atheism, everyone has to ultimately come to some reality that has existed beyond all time, that has always existed. If not, if there's no such reality that has always existed, then the conclusions come to things popping out of nothing, which is also absurd. And what is the Gita's proposition? What is theism, basically? It tells us that there is a reality, a supreme spiritual reality, that is God, who has always existed, beyond time, beyond all time. So, which some people may call as blind faith, but no, we don't think it's blind faith. It is well-reasoned faith, because logic has its limitations. Now, up to what point can logic take us? In all cases, when we come to this question about the why behind all whys, logic fails to explain that, because that supreme reality, for atheism, that supreme reality is something. It's either a dot or matter that has always existed. For theism, the supreme reality is a divine being called God, who is the why behind all whys. And beyond that why, there is no why. Therefore, there's this beautiful prayer by Lord Brahma. Ishvarah Paramah Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Sarvakarana Karanam. The cause behind all causes, the why behind all whys. So why God exists, there's no reason why God exists. So yeah, it's not a blind faith to accept such a reality that has always existed. So logic is certainly very helpful. Logic helps us connect cause and effect. However, logic has its limitations. There are some things that cannot stand in front of logic. We call them illogical. But there are truths in front of which logic cannot stand. And those truths we call translogic. And topics about God are translogic in one sense, because our tiny brains, though human beings do have very advanced brains compared to all other species, but yet, in terms of understanding these highest truths, logic has its limitations. But it doesn't mean we discard logic. That would then become blind faith. But yet, logic can play a role. It can take us up to a point where we can realize that, oh, there are truths beyond logic. So there are truths that logic cannot explain. So, and the fact that with logic, we can come to a point of understanding that not everything can fit into logic. And it's a logical conclusion that everything cannot fit into logic, isn't it? So with logic, we can understand that everything cannot fit into logic. So now with this, we enter into today's session. Before we do that, does anyone have any quick reflections or questions? Just a brief pause. What's your good name, sir? Divya. Okay, welcome. Nice to have you.
Argument that can be made to make this case, a little bit more solid, or may have some more weight in terms of there are arguments that can be said there are more other realms and can go through the realms. I mean, and is experiential the only answer, and there's no logic answer for that? Is that
Oh, okay. So, yeah, you're talking about, can we have more logical answers to the existence of God?
in general, is there an argument that can be made at this level or at our level?
Right. Yeah. Actually, as I said, we do have a complete dedicated session related to this. How we see, just like in this world, we see laws which imply some lawmaker. In this world, we see so many intelligent laws, like, for example, even from a scientific or mathematical perspective, we see Fibonacci is one number that occurs at a series that occurs at so many levels, which do indicate the existence of an intelligent brain behind everything. Fibonacci 1, 1, 2, then 3, then we add up previous two numbers to get the next one. That's seen at Fibonacci. There's something called Fibonacci spirals that exist even at galactic levels. Our ears are in that shape. So many beautiful patterns can be observed in this world. We didn't completely dive into that. Yeah, there certainly are so many arguments. Once I was cutting a cauliflower with one of my roommates while I was doing masters, and we were surprised. We observed a beautiful pattern in cauliflowers. Cauliflowers, if you observe, it's basically a big flower, and on that there are multiple small flowers which are identical to that big flower, but just small models of that. Imagine something like a big ball inside which there are smaller balls, and inside each of those smaller balls there are even smaller balls. Cauliflowers are in that kind of a pattern. My friend immediately pointed out this is called fractal symmetry in physics. So we observe so many beautiful patterns, and which just cannot come about randomly. So
Yeah, so you're
a lot of arguments.
saying that there is an architect, it cannot be random.
Yes, yeah. So we didn't take a complete session on this, but yeah. It is.
So since you mentioned there are multiple ones, and also there was a video played in the last session regarding multiple Brahmas. And so is it also possible there are multiple Vishnus and multiple Shivas, or it's only Brahmas who are?
Yeah, that's also possible. Yeah. In fact, yeah, the scriptures do inform us of that. Yeah, that for every universe there is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva.
This is that contradicts the statement when they say Aham Brahmasmi, and everything is like oneness, right? So how does that correlate?
Yeah,
Explain that.
oneness doesn't mean there's no variety. At the spiritual level also, the scriptures do point us out there is a lot of variety. It's not that at spiritual realm we cease to, our identity ceases to exist. So in today's topic, we are going to discuss how at the spiritual realm also there's so much variety. There's bliss, there's joy. It's not just a void or some reality with no varieties. Yeah. Okay, shall we continue?
I am the God, right? But we are all part of God, so can we?
Yeah. Aham Brahmasmi technically is not I am God, it is I am divine, I am godly, a part of God. And because we are Brahman, but there's someone called Parabrahman. So Aham Brahmasmi is not technically I am God, because we know we are limited beings. There is Parabrahman, who is our Param Atma. And we are going to discuss more about that in today's session. And we are a part of that supreme reality. Shall we continue? Since it's a long session, we have lots of topics to cover, but definitely we can keep having these conversations. And so now, in the first session, we saw how dharma is something. I'll keep checking the time so that, yeah. So now, in the first session, we saw dharma. Dharma is a very multifaceted word, taking on different meanings in different contexts. So in the first session, we saw dharma refers to spiritual inquiry. But now we are going to discuss a very interesting idea of dharma, which refers to the Atma, the soul. So now dharma, and this is related to our topic. The Atma has an essential nature that cannot be taken away from it. And that is also called dharma. So, and any deviation from that dharma or that essential nature becomes artificiality, and it's not satisfying then. Nobody feels satisfied being artificial, right? Nobody can be happy in an artificial state. So now, what is sugar's dharma? Anything that you see intrinsically connected with sugar? Sweetness, yeah. If you are given a white powder that's not sweet, what do we conclude? It's not sugar. What is the dharma of salt? To be salty, yeah. Any white powder that doesn't have the taste of salt, we'll conclude it's not salt. Similarly, the dharma or nature, intrinsic nature of water, it quenches thirst and yeah, whatever essential properties that come with water. Now, similarly, what is the dharma of the Atma? What is it that is intrinsically connected with the Atma, with every Atma? You, me, all of us here, and all other species also. Jyotsna ji is saying God. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, in one sense, we are all connected with God. Anything else? Any essential nature of the Atma that cannot be taken away from?
The desire to get liberation.
The desire to get liberation. There are still living entities in this world who do not want it, right? But maybe you might want to say the desire to be happy. Yeah, could be. The desire to not be killed. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, these are all connected with the essential nature of the Atma. But there's one specific.
Sorry, it is a property of salt to be salty. It is a property of sugar. So dharma is a property. What is it?
Yeah, intrinsic, inherent nature of the Atma, which cannot be disconnected from. Yeah. So you can also use the word property, an essential.
Like what is unique about an Atma? Like what is the property or fundamental nature of Atma?
Yeah, fundamental nature of Atma. So here's one picture that may remind us of one word which could point us toward that dharma of the Atma.
Sir.
What do we see here?
Sir.
Serve. Yeah. So someone is served. In tennis, they call it service. So yeah, for the Atma, there's something that cannot be disconnected from the Atma. What is that? Serving. The Atma's natural tendency is to serve. And even in this material realm, we observe that everyone is serving something or the other. So yeah, one may have to serve a boss, one serves one's family members. So service is something that cannot be separated from the Atma, either in a state of false ego or even in the state of true ego. So,
Does the service here mean voluntary service or even involuntary service? Like serving my boss is involuntary. Voluntary service.
glad that your manager is not here, no?
In general, right? In general,
Yes.
there are a lot of things people do that they don't want to do. And there are things people do that's done out of nature of helping someone, out of service, or other. So what is the dharma of Atma in this case?
Yeah. So this services, the Atma, actually it's the voluntary part of service that gives joy. When it is done involuntarily or when it is forced, force never brings real joy. But when the Atma engages in its dharma of its own volition, of its own free will, then that is what is the natural state of the Atma. So yeah, it's the voluntary part of it. Yeah, that's more emphasized here. Thank you. Okay. So now in this world, we see there is pervasive selfishness and I, me, and mine. So yeah, we see that all around us. So in this connection, I'm reminded of one particular incident. Once one great saint, he was giving a talk in IIT Bombay to the bright minds of IIT. And he introduced the talk by this question that bewildered everyone. Nobody had an answer to this. So he asked this confounding question. In selfishness, we apparently gain something, but still we become miserable. In selflessness, we are apparently losing something, but still we become happy. How does that happen? Nobody had answer. Because there's no answer at material level. The answer comes from some spiritual plane. And for us, what's the answer? It comes because the natural intrinsic quality of the Atma is to serve, yeah, the dharma of the Atma. So service done out of love is something that makes the Atma joyful. And now, yeah, we see that in this world, there's selfishness, all pervasive selfishness that creates all troubles in this world. And in the previous session, we saw how if a stone is dropped in a water body, it creates nice, beautiful waves, circular wave patterns. But when stones are dropped at different places, those circular patterns will collide with each other and they'll destroy each other. Similarly, in this world, everyone, if we look around, is living with this consciousness that I'm the center of everything. Everything is meant for my enjoyment. Some man may think, oh, that beautiful woman, this beautiful woman is meant for my enjoyment. Basically, wherever one stream of consciousness falls on whatever, one thinks this is meant for me. Everything revolves around me. That kind of self-centeredness, and guess what? Everyone is thinking like that in this world. That's the source of all clashes and all problems in this world. However, we saw that in the spiritual realm, or Vaikuntha, which is the real home of the Atma, there's no such thing as multiple egos and clashing with each other. There's one center of everything. And therefore, there's perfect harmony in the spiritual realm. There are no such ego clashes or anything of that sort. The problems we see in this world, they don't exist on the spiritual platform. So now the next question may come. And we left our last session with this question. So who is the center in the spiritual world? What is that reality around which everything revolves? Which makes it possible that there are no such ego clashes. It doesn't mean there's no variety. There are different personalities, individual traits exist, even on the spiritual plane, but yet there's unity, a completely harmonious unity. And yeah, there's some center that makes it possible. So what is that center? The next question that comes up, where has this tendency to serve come from? And then, why do Atmas exist right in the first place? The answer to all these three questions is one word. And any guess what that could be? Yeah, the Param Atma, Paramatma, the Supreme Atma, or more commonly known as God. So, Paramatma, every Atma has a connection with Param, the Supreme Atma, Paramatma. And in that sense, we are all like siblings to each other. This idea, being firmly rooted in this idea, can so wonderfully establish universal brotherhood and sisterhood in this world. There's one famous statement that our current Prime Minister in India, he respected Modi ji, he makes this statement very often wherever he goes. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So, has any one of you heard this statement before? Basically, this statement, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Kutumba, which means family. This statement is talking about a universal family. What is the central point of this universal family? It is God, Paramatma. All living entities are connected with God, with Paramatma. Yeah, Paramatma is the center, and in that sense, we are all connected with each other. And knowing our connection with Paramatma and everyone else's connection with Paramatma, that can eradicate all hatred, all bigotry in this world. It can eradicate all ego clashes. And yeah, it's so it establishes universal brotherhood. So Krishna makes this wonderful statement in the Bhagavad Gita. Could you please repeat after me, line by line? We will go. Mama evamsho jiva loke Jivabhutah Sanatanah Manah Shashtanindriyani Prakritisthani Karshati. Would someone like to read it?
The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind.
Yeah, Krishna is saying, all living entities are my eternal fragmental parts. So basically the Atma is a part of Paramatma, a tiny part. So one thing that can help us understand this, we are qualitatively one with God. We are a conscious being with the powers to think, to feel, to will, make decisions. Thinking, feeling, and willing, these are characteristics of consciousness. We have that, and likewise, Paramatma also has that. But how are we different from Paramatma? In quantity, in magnitude. Qualitatively, we are like Paramatma, but in quantity, magnitude or grandeur, we are tiny, infinitesimal, whereas Paramatma is infinite. One analogy can be given in this connection: drop versus the ocean. Consider any ocean, Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean. Any drop taken from that ocean, in quality, it's the same as that entire ocean in terms of salt content and so on. But yet, in terms of quantity, it's way, way different. The drop is nothing in compared to the ocean. So similarly, the Atma in quality is like Paramatma. And the Aham Brahmasmi statement that was brought up sometime back, that also refers to our qualitative oneness with God. Not that we are God, but we are godly, God-like. So, and currently in this world, that divinity of ours is forgotten. Or in other words, our connection with Paramatma is forgotten in this world. Now, so what is the center in the spiritual world? We saw that's Paramatma. And in the previous session, we had taken this analogy with an orchestra. In an orchestra, there's such beautiful harmony, right? Which brings about a wonderful melodious symphony. So, and what makes that harmony possible? Because there's one central figure to whom everyone is responding. So similarly, in the spiritual world, just like in an orchestra, the central figure is the conductor. In the spiritual world, the central figure around whom everything revolves is the Param Atma. And in cooperation with Paramatma, all Atmas are unlimitedly happy. All our aspirations, longings, desires are fulfilled in that state of being in connection with Paramatma. Then to give a little more elaboration on the second two questions, where has this tendency to serve come from? And why do Atmas even exist in the first place? For that, let's do a small contemplation exercise. We could think, let's close our eyes and we can meditate for some time. If we were given unlimited resources and no constraints, okay? Unlimited resources, unlimited things at our beck and call, and no constraints at all. Nobody is there to stop us or question us. What would we do? Okay, let's do that for a few seconds. Imagine you are never going to get old, so no constraints. You don't have to serve a boss, no annual reviews, no constraints. You don't have tax authorities running after you. Just no constraints. You have unlimited wealth and nobody's stopping you. What would you do? Shall we come back? So, just one or two sample answers. Would someone like to volunteer and share with us what came to your mind?
If there is no purpose, then I would just be lazy and then just do anything. Like,
Do anything, but anything that something gives you joy.
yeah,
Yeah.
But even that, like I was thinking like, okay, we can do this way, but after some time, that will also get bored, right? That's not a pure happiness. For example, I like to eat, right? So food, after some time, it becomes painful. Eat or eat, right? The other time you enjoy the food, but it will be painful after. The same way, like any like activity, like initially you feel joy, but after some time you feel so. As I said, like serving, right? We didn't really get bored. For example, like when I go serve others, like even like food or something, right? Other in temples, right? When we serve, initially I thought, oh, I should eat first, but after you start serving the food, you don't feel like eating at all. Like even after 2 hours, you don't feel hungry, because I used to get hungry like 4 o'clock, but even I'm serving with and 3 I'm feeling. So that's like that is the pure happiness, right? When you serve people, right? You get a satisfaction. So if you have money, like unlimited money, if you give people and people, you feel happiness on their eyes, right? That it's just like
Yeah, right. Yeah. This example is technically not so much of this world, but yeah, as you said, in this world, everything becomes hackneyed, boring after some time. And it's okay not to have complete idea about this question. It is more or less a question to hint us toward the existence of God and God's way of enjoyment. And it's okay even if we don't have a complete idea of what we would do, because that's how most of us are clueless about the activities of Paramatma. But one underlying thing we can see is we would try to expand our joy. If given unlimited resources, we would try to expand our joy. And it is for the purpose of this expanding joy that Paramatma performs so many wonderful activities. Paramatma has no need to get fulfilled. We run around in this world. We have to drive our cars on 101, this, that, go from this place to that place, because we have something to get out of it. If we don't act in this world, the forces of hunger, thirst, sleep, they are so demanding. They'll capture us. They'll not let us live. They threaten our existence if we don't attend to them. But Paramatma is not threatened by any such forces. Basically, Paramatma has an eternal existence and no such constraints. Paramatma is the highest reality, the Bhai behind all Bhais, Sarva Karana Karanam, the supreme absolute truth. So the Paramatma, now what does the Paramatma do with that eternal existence? Just go to sleep, just relax and go to sleep? No, the Paramatma, as the scriptures inform us, is engaged in wonderful activities called Leelas, which expand his God's joy and also all Atma's joy. And in connection with Paramatma, with God, the Atmas are also completely blissful. And that's the reason why Atmas even exist in the first place, to be cooperators in the joy of Paramatma. And in that connection with Paramatma, in giving happiness to Paramatma, there's supreme happiness for us as well. Now, we are going to come to that. This may, right now, at this state, it may appear like Paramatma is selfish. Maybe this question may have come to the mind of some of you. We are going to deal with that. It's an anticipated question. We'll discuss more about Paramatmas and our connection. So, does Paramatma need anything from us? Well, so far, whatever we have discussed about Paramatma, God actually doesn't need anything from anyone. God is self-sufficient. But then, why at all do we exist in connection with God? So one example that can help us here. Of course, not all parts of an analogy map exactly, but still analogies are helpful to illuminate on some topic. In this world, we see parents, couples give birth to a child. Men and women come together. It happens in all species. They give birth to a child. Now, why do you think parents give birth to a child? Any thoughts? Why could they be doing? Some of you are parents, yeah, maybe you might want to go back in time and think, oh, what was my desire? Individual.
Joy in bringing another entity into this world. I mean, that has its own joy.
Yeah, so you are saying kind of expanding joy.
To
Wonderful.
serve our own paternal instinct that some people experience after a certain age.
Mhm. And yeah, that's a nice point. I never thought of it like that. But can that also be connected with expanding joy? That sort of, in one sense, makes
Yeah,
one
for
happy.
our
Yeah.
joy for ourselves. Yeah.
True. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. So, yeah, you hit the right target. So it's not that couples give birth to a child so that this child will support me in my old age.
Nobody has,
Well,
nobody has noticed that.
Yeah.
Beyond that confusion.
So, and in any case, if since we are discussing about Paramatma has no such constraints of old age or anything. So, yeah, or it's not even that the couple feels they are lacking in resources or manpower. We need some more manpower, so let's give birth to a child. So it's not for supporting old age or to get some manpower that they give birth to a child. They give birth to a child for the sheer reason that it expands joy. And of course, those of you who are parents would know it much better. So, yeah, now, is there anything wrong with expanding joy? What do you think about it?
I think it depends on the means of how you're expanding.
Depends on the means, yeah. And what are those means? What could be considered a wrong mean and what could be considered a perfectly legitimate and okay mean?
I guess anything that could be harmful to anyone in any sense and that gives you joy, I would think that there's something wrong with that.
Wonderful, yeah.
Stealing money from someone versus working hard to get
It is not expanding joy. Is it? Expanding joy for yourself or others.
worse.
Yeah. For ourselves,
Okay.
so basically, yeah, you made amazing points. So if for the sake of expanding our own joy, if we cause suffering to others, then that's not a good way of expanding joy. But if by our expanding joy, we are also, everyone in the process becomes happy, we as well as other parties involved, then that's a perfectly wonderful way of expanding joy. And we see that even in this world. So, yeah, so just like we saw, when couples give birth to a child, is it that only the parents are happy and the child is only suffering? The child is being tortured by the parents so that they can derive happiness out of the child? No, there's joy for both parties in that exchange, in that loving exchange. So similarly, in our relationship with God, with Paramatma, there's supreme enjoyment for both the Lord, for God, as well as us, the Atmas. So, yeah, both the Atma and Paramatma enjoy unlimitedly in this bond. Now, here comes one important point. As Vikasji was pointing out, and you also made amazing points that yeah, if it is done at the cost of making somebody else miserable, then that's not a legitimate way of being happy. So therefore, God has eternally given each living entity free will. the ability to make choices. And with that free will, when one expresses love toward Paramatma, that free will is a very essential ingredient of connection with Paramatma. When love is expressed out of one's own volition, that love is perfectly satisfying, and yeah, it expands joy. But when it is done, anything done out of force, as Vikasji had also brought up this point about involuntary service, doesn't really bring joy. So free will is an essential ingredient that is there in a eternal relationship with God, with Paramatma. So, and yeah, Atmas basically, they use their free will to serve Paramatma. And when they do that, when we use our free will to love God, to be connected with God and to serve God, in that we derive supreme joy and happiness. And because in this world, we are disconnected from that dharma of the Atma, to love God, to serve God. Therefore, in this world, we try to find happiness in material things. And that kind of search for happiness, it's something like this. You may find this a very absurd thing to do. One example can explain it here. Suppose we lose a key or a ring somewhere. Suppose we lose it in a dark room, and then we want to search for it. We want to find it. And we try searching for it in some other room where there are lights on. What do you think? Is it an intelligent thing to do? And why? The reason given is, oh, because that room is dark, I cannot see that. So let me search for it in this room. But we are never going to find it in this room because it was lost somewhere else. So similarly, the perfect joy that we are looking for, the key to that perfect happiness and joy that everyone, each Atma is looking for, is at the spiritual platform, not at this material platform. But when living entities know only of this material plane, they somehow, not they, we also, I'm also included in that. I don't consider myself any special or anything, but we try to find it in, when we look for it in this material world, we somehow try to squeeze it out through some puny enjoyments of this world. And that experience is not really satisfying to the Atma. One beautiful analogy is given by saints. Our situation, our condition in this world is like a fish being taken out of water. When a fish is taken out of water, no matter what is offered to that fish, nice bhel puri, pani puri, any amount of money, or some beautiful female fish, if it's a male fish, whatever, nothing can make that fish happy. So our situation in this world is somewhat like that. Nothing of this world can make the Atma happy. All enjoyments of this world, they are fleeting in nature. They merely come titillate us for some time and then they go away. Poets lament for, oh, why are pleasures so fleeting in this world? Philosophers ponder over it. Big politicians have also wondered why, even after reaching the heights of success, everything gets snatched away from them. And yeah, why can't they hold on to it permanently? The nature of this world is that the Atma cannot be completely happy in this material realm. So now, here comes one question. Does Paramatma expect us to serve him? Does God expect us to serve him? Not really. Basically, yeah, God is not expecting any service, but it's in our own interest that when we serve God and when we love God, we also experience that joy. And it expands joy for both, for God as well as us. And this relationship between God and us, it's like a parent and a child relationship. God is a very loving master. Some descriptions may sound like, oh, God is a cruel master. But if we see, oh, the Bhagavad Gita itself, if we have a copy of Bhagavad Gita, right on the front page of Bhagavad Gita, we see Krishna is doing something. He is on a chariot and sitting there in as the passenger of the chariot or as the driver. Driver. And who is the passenger being ridden on that chariot? Arjun is the passenger. Now, a driver's position is not considered that high, right? In fact, in a war, in a battle, when the warrior is fighting, he has no time to give direction, to speak words. So sometimes in the deep passions of the battle, one has to, the warrior just kicks on the shoulder of the chariot driver to give directions. This means right, this means left. Imagine Krishna took that position for Arjun. Who can be a more loving master? So it's not that God is a cruel master or an exploitative master. God is a very loving master. And in service to God, every living entity derives unlimited joy. Oh, welcome Sundaranand Prabhu. Sundaranand Prabhu is here. He's my mentor, my teacher. He's the main force behind this course. He's here with his daughter, Vraja. Personally, I must admit, I was just in my own complacent zone, but he woke me up from my complacence and said, come on, we should start this Gita in a nutshell. We should share this treasure with others. Let's do something about it. He is the main force behind this course. So, yeah, welcome, Prabhu. We'll get to hear much better insights from him now. So, yeah, we just discussed God is a loving master. And we'll end in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We are almost toward the end of our slides. And then I want to make sure we get to hear some wisdom even from Sundaranand Prabhu. So, yeah, another definition of service we can see is experiencing joy through relationships. So say, for example, why would someone keep a function at all? People like to call others at home, right? It involves some service, actually. It involves running around, buying some things, cooking something, and then one invites somebody at home. Now, there is service involved there. Is that service making us miserable? It makes us joyful. So another definition of service is experiencing joy through loving reciprocation, loving relationships. So yeah, our connection with God, with Paramatma, is also something like that. And God also serves Paramatma also serves the Atmas. God serves his devotees. As we just discussed, Krishna and Arjun's example. Krishna driving the chariot of Arjun, expressing so much love. Krishna, in one particular instance, when he had descended into this world, Mother Yashoda was trying to bind him, but she wasn't able to. For quite some time, she tried. Every time the rope with which she was trying to bind him, she tried adding so many more ropes to that. But it was always short by 2 fingers. But then after some time, Krishna, when Mother Yashoda was not able to tie him, that was more like Krishna was displaying his majestic powers. He did not want to get tied up. But then after some time, he wanted to reciprocate with the love of Mother Yashoda. And then he allowed himself to be tied up. And Mother Yashoda was able to tie him up. So, yeah, through such loving reciprocations, it is said in one prayer, Iti drikswa leelabhir ananda konde, swaghosham nimajjantam akhyapayantam. By performing such wonderful leelas, what is the meaning of a leela? Leela means not an activity like we do in this world. We do it because we have to. Otherwise, the forces of hunger, thirst, sleep, they'll threaten us and they'll not let us live any longer. But Leela means just activities which are not being forced by any other higher authorities. No higher authority is forcing God to perform Leelas. Leelas means purely enjoyable activities, and that's what God is engaged in. And we are also a part of that wonderful Leela of the Lord. So-
sounds like he's having a lot of fun.
Yeah, God is
And
having a lot
distance-
of fun, and
distance
it's
us from him through the mirror image, like you said. We are living in his reflection from away from the spiritual world. So like he has distanced himself from us.
actually we are coming to that. God hasn't distanced us; we have distanced ourselves. Such an intelligent question, no? It's perfectly bringing us to the next slide. So, yeah, it's not that God has distanced us; we have distanced ourselves from God, and we are coming to that slide. In fact, yeah, I'll skip this definition. We can take it up in the next class. We'll come to the point you brought up. So, yeah, one thing quickly we will mention here is God. In order to be able to have that eternal connection, God, we must have some attraction toward God, right? Otherwise, yeah, we may not feel any voluntary joy in any joy in offering voluntary service to God. So, in this connection, it is said God is all attractive. Just like iron filings are naturally attracted toward a magnet, all Atmas are naturally drawn toward Paramatma. Attractions of this world, they are temporary and relative. A man may feel attraction toward a woman, but a dog has absolutely no attraction to a, however beautiful a woman may be, Miss India, Miss World, Miss Universe, whatever. A dog has attraction toward a bitch. And likewise, however handsome and capable a man may be, a female cockroach has no attraction for him. So attractions of this world, they are relative and temporary. But attraction of the Atma for Paramatma is absolute. It's there in all Atmas. It's natural. It is said when God descends into this world, when Krishna had come 5,000 years ago, or even when Lord Ram had descended, all living entities feel naturally drawn toward God. When Krishna would play in Vrindavan, all the cows, deer, everyone would just feel irresistibly drawn toward Krishna. When Lord Ram had built that bridge, the famous bridge to cross and go to Lanka, it is said all the aquatics had come to the surface of the ocean. Huge aquatics, all whales and all aquatics in harmony, they came to the surface. And it is said the bridge had some width, but because the aquatics came up from here, they expanded the width of the bridge. And the Vanaras were even able to walk over them. So all living entities have attraction toward God. So yeah, we'll skip this, but yeah, there are 6 qualities that everyone has attraction to in this world. There's strength, Muhammad Ali is shown there. There's fame, wealth, beauty. There's some lady's picture shown here. Then there's intelligence, Einstein is shown here. So there are 6 qualities which are enumerated, which everyone has. If someone has even one of them, other living entities feel attracted to that person. And renunciation is also one such quality. One definition of God is that God has all these 6 in unlimited proportions. And that's the definition of Bhagavan. Balavan means somebody who has bala. Buddhivan, buddhiman means somebody who has buddhi. Bhagavan means somebody who has all these 6 opulences in full, in unlimited quantities. And forever. Yeah. What is it? Fame, no? Or So, yeah, whatever each picture represents, I am unable to map it, but the qualities are beauty, wealth, fame, knowledge, strength, and renunciation. Renunciation also attracts other living
The
entities.
last one is renunciation.
Renunciation, yeah. So yeah, would you like to elaborate? Basically, the quality of not being attached even when somebody, very often, rich people, when they see somebody is genuinely renounced, genuinely detached, they also feel drawn toward that person. So one attractive quality, when somebody is renounced and detached at heart, it draws some living entities toward that person. Many people may misuse that to become bogus gurus and all, to misuse renunciation to become some bogus guru and all. That also happens in this world, but renunciation is one quality that attracts living entities.
But I think
God.
that's the quality that one should have to be detached to get away from all the other, attractions.
Yeah, it is a wonderful quality to have. And what we are saying here is when someone has that quality, it attracts others toward that person,
It makes them stand out. That's what it means.
makes them stand out in one. It attracts also other living
I
entities.
guess it attracts people who want that quality too. So people who want
Yeah.
that quality, so they get attracted towards that person.
For example, Bill Gates giving away all his wealth for charity, and that's like created a lot of news and attraction to, and Warren Buffett followed. One example of renunciation in one sense, small aspect.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example. Okay, so Bhagwan means someone who has all these six in unlimited proportions and forever. And because God is all attractive, one name of God is Krishna, which means one who is all attractive. And thank you. So the word Krishna means he who is all attractive. And in fact, the word Krishna, even the English word attraction, there's this Hindi word akarshan, attraction. They have common connection with this. In many languages, we see words are quite interconnected. So Krishna means all attractive, and in Hindi, this word Akrisht is one of the Sanskrit words which means attraction, and from that have come words like akarshan, even attraction. So Krishna means God is all attractive. Now,
Sorry.
so now, when we have such a loving master, welcome.
You had a question. Yeah, no, my father. Yeah, I mean, so the previous person said about giving out like renunciation, right? So I mean, I was thinking it's totally different from the other attractions, because ultimately, Bhagavan also says that you have to be detached to not to attract other things, so to reach the Paramatma, right? If we are attached to the things, we will never reach that place. So isn't it renunciation is totally different from
The other
what
five?
Bhagavan wants to be, or what we want to be detached, right? So why would that be into the things that we don't want that? Or one attracted to the Bill Gates? Yeah, I mean, whatever that X amount, but doesn't matter. But if we wanted to give all out, isn't it that's not?
It's a glorious quality.
Yeah.
Renunciation, among all these others, renunciation is definitely a quality that's much more conducive for spiritual progress. But yet it is categorized among these because it's a form of opulence that can attract others to us, and there's some danger also with renunciation if it leads one to pride rather than devotion to God. Renunciation can also lead to pride in some cases. I am too detached, I am highly renounced. When that becomes a source of pride, then that's not a good thing. Renunciation is meant to lead to devotion.
Just one point. I wanted to add just one point there was that is that ultimately renunciation is also not the ultimate goal. Not the ultimate goal. Ultimate goal. Of course, material renunciation is required, but our ultimate goal is to attachment to Krishna or the divine. So which basically attachment to the divine or Krishna is what is our ultimate goal. Having that, that is actually inversely proportional to attachment to the divine is inversely proportional to the attachment to material things. True. So our goal is even going, so we don't focus on cultivating detachment, we focus on cultivating attachment to Krishna. Ourselves. Yeah. So we, by process of Bhakti Yoga, we try to revive or cultivate our attachment to the divine. And just by having that cultivation, automatically the byproduct is the detachment comes forth.
Is that what you mean by God realization?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Basically, in the spiritual path, the idea is, as you're saying, not to renounce things, but like, for example, if I want to, let's say, build muscles, right? I would only give up like eating ice cream and sugar things, right? So that I can build the muscles. Similarly, to cultivate spiritual practices, there is certain element of lifestyle, and there are certain things that just don't work well. For example, if you are too much, like, let's say, sleeping very late in the night, you might not be able to get up early enough to do certain exercises or meditation. So just those kind of things are what we talk about as renunciation.
I do have a question. Like, we talk about, getting attracted to God, serving God, serving in general. So, like, what is serving? Like, what is the right way of serving which gets you attached to God? Serving your family, spreading happiness around. Is that serving enough? Or what is serving to you?
Selfless.
I think it comes down to free will. That's my interpretation, right? That anything that you do out of free will, that is helps in spreading joy to others.
We can do good things and bad things with free will.
Yeah, but that
doesn't mean that we get attracted to it.
No, this is about spreading joy, right?
Expanding.
I mean, service. Yeah, I mean, we all serve in one way or another. Now, the understanding is, when the service is rightly placed, because we can also serve our own from an ego platform. So when right now we are not serving, but we are serving our own self-interest. So that is on an ego platform. I mean, family also, of course, it's more noble than serving ourselves. But still, there is also a platform it's still a material platform on the egoistic platform, because this is my wife, my husband, whatever it is. So that is also still ego. And even if you expand that to my nation, my society, still there is I in the center. The ego is there, and it's from an ego platform. But divine service, when we truly, replace the I in the center to our divine source, or Krishna in the center, and by that is divine service. When we can keep the Paramatma in the center, who's truly in the center, because he is the source of everything. So when we keep the Paramatma in the center and serve, then that becomes perfect service. And it's like serving the Paramatma is like watering the root of a tree. When you water the root of a tree, then automatically all the branches, twigs, leaves, everything gets nourished. When we actually, and similarly, when we serve the stomach, right, then all the parts of the body gets nourished. So similarly, when we serve the divine, automatically that service includes serving ourselves and all the others also. But that is a level of consciousness one can rise to by gradual application of the process.
What is a tangible act of service, something that we can start doing, start doing today?
Some examples, right?
Yeah, so basically what, so there is service, if you really, for service, as somebody said, no, the more selfless it is, the more refined it is, the more fulfilling it is. We can all experience that, if I do something and I want other person to expect other person to do something back, then that's okay. I mean, that's very transactional. So service also, it's the levels we go, it becomes more refined. And some of the examples of service, because either you can. So Krishna, what he recommends is serving from the platform, from the spiritual platform. So basically, so you can serve at different levels. So if you want to perform service, like for example, now, Swapnil is actually conducting these services. This is a service. He's not expecting that, anything in return, but he's just sharing this knowledge to benefit all the attendees. So this is actually a selfless service, but other spiritual platform. Now we can also serve at many different ways, but everything, if it's dovetailed to dovetailed spiritually, then what happens is it all becomes akarma. So we can do many kinds of service, but if everything, like for example, you have an iron rod, and then you place it in fire, and then it becomes red hot. Now the iron rod will act as a fire. If you touch a paper with that iron rod which is red hot, then it will burn the paper. So similarly, all material activities, Krishna says, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir. So he says all material activities from a material platform can be converted into a spiritual activity if you have the proper consciousness of how, it's all connected. I mean, see, the reason we see everything in a disconnected is because of our material vision. But actually everything is connected to the divine. And so that's a spiritual vision. But that comes gradually when we apply the process. And then whatever you do, then Krishna says, when a person is situated in the spiritual consciousness, he does any activity, it's a spiritual activity. It falls under the category of akarma. That has no reactions, no material. So it really depends on our consciousness. And then we can do any activity and connect it, dovetail, spiritually. There's more to be said.
No, but thanks for the context. So in the same context, like if we try to do anything like intentionally now, right? Is that considered like, okay, I want to do selfless, I realize something with this thing, right? But where do I start with? So let's say, do I just go to some temple, or do I just do like donate money, or if I just donate my time, just like any volunteer activity or any cause? Is that like a good start?
Yeah, that's a great start. In fact, we have a marathon of distributing Bhagavad Gitas. So like tomorrow is Ekadashi and also Gita Jayanti. So Gita Jayanti, I mean the day when actually Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So we celebrate that every year. So what we do is we go out and share the knowledge and the book with many people actually. So that's again a service. So everything that's dovetailed to benefiting humanity at a spiritual level, that becomes spiritualized.
So I mean, like I start doing this with the
And then as you said, going to the temple, you just clean the floor in the temple. That's seva. And then you distribute some food, which is actually, of course, again, one thing you have to be careful about is, if you just distribute food, what happens is it becomes it's a material activity. And material activity means, either you get good benefit or you get bad reactions. But then when that food is actually offered to Krishna in the temple,
and then that becomes prasad. Now it's different. It is spiritualized because it's connected with Krishna. So anything, if we can connect it back to Krishna and then use that to serve, then it becomes spiritualized. So food, if you offer it to Krishna, then it becomes spiritualized. Now you can go and distribute that. Now what happens is that food, which is connected spiritually, it benefits at all levels. So there are 3 levels, right? There is physical, there is mental or emotional, and then there is spiritual. So generally, if you just give food, what we are doing is we're only trying to provide them physically, but then we don't know what the condition is mentally or emotionally or spiritually. But then when we are able to dovetail it, spiritually, then what happens is the benefit actually occurs at all levels. So it's purifying mentally, it's fulfilling, physically, it's purifying mentally, and it's also fulfilling spiritually. So we can try to get, but these are wonderful questions. I really appreciate it. Everybody's talking about service and very nice.
Actually, so the next session is all about how do we act.
Like how is it selfless? It is centered. Okay, I want to be attracted to God. I want to be closer to God. I want to go into the spiritual world. That is not selfless.
Yeah, if your purpose is to get closer to God, is that self?
That's my motto, and that's why I do all the service.
No, it's natural. I wouldn't say it's not egoistic. See, a small child, depending on the parents, it's natural. Like when a small kid, it naturally depends on the parent, and it's not worrying or it's an anxiety, whether I will get food today or or it's so the child is actually carefree. In fact, when it with the parents or then it's very carefree. It's anxiety free. It's just playing. It's just joyful. So it's natural for the child to be. It's a natural question. It's not like it's not an artificial question. But when we act with ego, then it becomes artificial. So our original state is to be naturally dependent on Krishna. That's our natural state. So to move towards a natural state, it's not that we have to deny ourselves, or deny ourselves what is the ultimate good for us. Krishna is actually giving all this message to do, what is ultimately good for us. So to do what is ultimately good for us is not selfish.
Does that mean all the service has to go through some sort of medium like a temple? Or can I go and serve in an old age home or an orphanage? Does it have to be related to a temple?
I mean,
not necessarily a temple, but to spiritualize it, it has to be related with God.
So
So
does that mean if I go?
So you can do, again.
Is that not spiritual?
Well, it is noble, but then the way it becomes spiritual is if we're able to connect it.
Isn't it connected like the one diagram you showed that we are all fragments of the
Right,
Paramatma?
right.
So if you're
So
splitting the fragments of the Paramatma,
Sure,
then
if you have that vision, you have that consciousness, then yeah. But then at the same time, you want to benefit them with the karma, with the spiritually infused food also, right? If you want to benefit at the spiritual level, see there is. I'm sure you would have talked about, the food in the 3 modes. So food also has, not all food is karma free.
no, I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about doing some action.
Sure.
Donating my time.
Again, so ultimately it depends on the consciousness of the person. It's not the external activity. Like for example, Arjuna and Duryodhana both are fighting. Externally, both activities look the same. But Arjuna's activity was spiritual. Because he was not doing it for Duryodhana's activity was spiritual or material. Why it was material?
He was doing it for
himself.
himself.
Yeah, for his own, egoistic pursuit, because he wanted the whole kingdom. So because of that, that activity became material because it's from an ego platform. But then Arjuna's the same activity, it became spiritual and became a karma because
He was doing for the right
he
reason.
he was doing for dharma, and even beyond that, he was doing, for Krishna as a service. So it all depends on the consciousness of the person. And when we fix our consciousness, then automatically, all the other things also come together. How we want to, okay, donating food is not a bad thing at all. In fact, it's certainly noble activity. But the question is, if you do it without the spiritual consciousness, what happens? It becomes material. You do it with spiritual consciousness, and also, in addition to that, spiritualize the food, then everything. So Krishna says, use the analogy of fire sacrifice. The person who's on the spiritual platform, when he performs his yajna. So yajna means sacrifice. Yajna means giving. Yajna means service. So then he says that gives a beautiful analogy from the 4th chapter. The person who's offering, the ghee, the ahuti, the fire, everything actually becomes spiritual. Because the person's consciousness is spiritual. So like that, every activity we can do when we are in spiritual consciousness becomes spiritual.
Thank you.
So, you want to add something? Just one.
Yeah, you have covered all of it wonderfully. It's basically, as you said, going to the natural state is not a selfish desire. And we are not just doing it for ourselves. The desire to go back to God, if it is not based on this desire, like, oh, let me go there and relax. Oh, because Krishna is the key to the spiritual realm, Vaikuntha, let me just worship him and go back and relax. That is more of a selfish desire. But the desire to unconditionally love God, and when that desire to love God unconditionally also expands to all other living entities, it's perfectly selfless. It's the highest form of selflessness, actually. So, but to enable us ourselves to do that, our actions have to be spiritualized. So, for that we spend time even on ourselves, on our spiritual selves. And to enable us to do that, we have to give some time for our body also. This is the tool with which we can attain God, we can share God's message with others, we can enable others also to become connected with Paramatma. So to that extent, we also support our body. We don't over-decorate it. We don't give all our time and attention to it. We give it whatever time and attention it requires.
Do the regular oil change.
Yeah, oil change. Body also needs some maintenance. We do it. But
Why do we think of God only when we have some troubles? Is that selfish that we only think, or when we want some help from God? When things are good, why don't we think about?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, at pious level that happens. But there is a platform of piety. One saint coined a beautiful term: materialistic piety or pious materialism, where God is thought of only as an order supplier or somebody who comes to rescue me. But those who are more spiritually advanced, they understand that God also has a personal life. And I'm a part of God's personal life. And in fact, God descends into this world to advertise his personal life and call us back, come back home. Why do you want to live here and live in suffering? So one analogy was given by Braj Bihari Prabhu. He gives amazing classes. One devotee in Mumbai. He gave this analogy when he was a small boy, 5 to 7 years old. So in his classroom, there was some Mrs. Sharma, let's say, some lady teacher. So the boys and girls or students, they started observing that, oh, Mrs. Sharma's tummy is growing. And then they realized after some, oh, she's pregnant. She is about to give a baby. And then after some time, she went on maternity leave. While she was on leave, one day the school principal came and informed all students, little tiny boys and girls. Okay, everyone stand up. Let's offer a prayer for Mrs. Sharma. And then they were informed. Mrs. Sharma, who was going to deliver her baby, she had a miscarriage. So her baby is no more. So please pray for her and her baby. So nothing happened to Mrs. Sharma. Then the devotee who was sharing this example, he said, then I realized until now I was seeing Mrs. Sharma as somebody who just comes to the classroom, writes something on the board, teaches us something, makes us go through painful exams, and then corrects our papers. Until then, he had seen her only as that. But now he said, after this incident, I realized, oh, she also has her personal life. So those who are not so advanced in spiritual consciousness, for them, God's existence means God is my order supplier. God exists for me. But those who are spiritually advanced, they realize God, I exist for God, not God exists for me. Beginner spirituality may mean God exists for me. Advanced spirituality means I exist for God. Beginner spirituality may involves God is the fulfiller of my desires. Advanced spirituality means God is the fulfillment of all my desires. So there is that pious platform which may not be a very spiritually advanced platform. So on that platform, yes, one may think of God just when there are problems.
It's also like that, right? In a company when we work, if things are going well, everybody takes the company for granted, and suddenly there is a recession, everybody is working hard. So when there is a problem, generally that's when we take things, especially spiritual, like more seriously. So that's generally the nature of people.
Everybody has a different way to deal with pain. Like how one should do it. Like, if you're spiritually inclined or trying to incline, how do you deal with it?
Start we can continue the remaining slides in the next session. One question remains unanswered. Why did we leave our home and come to
The one which is
We'll cover
in the next episode.
We want to give it enough time. As
Just one point I want to add to the question is, we can also understand it, the relationship between child and a parent. The child only comes, the parent when it needs something. Then how the parents, we start thinking, why the child only coming, or the husband or any relationship, the other person only comes when there is a need or whenever there is something they want. Then it becomes like, it's we would like to have a relationship where it's goes beyond that. So that is how our relationship with Krishna also is. And Krishna is looking at us, okay, at least Krishna is, of course, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there are 4 kinds of people who come to me. Chaturvida bhajante ma, jana sukritina arjuna, atma jigyasa arthati, jnani chapartasya. Some people we want to say, explain that. No, please.
So 4 kinds of pious people come to me, Krishna says. Artho, one who is running after like Artha. Artha is like Artho, Arthati. Sorry, Artho is one who is distressed. Arthati is one who is like, looking for money or, problem. And the third one, the first one is distressed. Second one is one who is seeking. Third is Jnani, one who is seeking after knowledge. Jnani is Artho, Arthati, Jignasu. Jignasu is one who is inquisitive, like, one who thinks, okay, hey, what is the cause and effect? Like, we were all going through, how the world created, who am I, why do I exist, am I this body, what is my relation with this nature, or is there a supreme living thing, what is my nature? So these 4 kind of people come to Krishna to basically surrender unto him.
Yeah, so Krishna says there are 4 categories of people who come to him. And he says all these are great souls because they're coming to me. And then and after that, he says all the 4, one who seeks, one who comes to me, seeking out of pure knowledge is the best. The one who wants to cultivate that relationship. Of course, Krishna, glorifies all of them. That one who's, distressed, one who is seeking after wealth, inquisitive, and then one who's wants to, have that connection with the Supreme, who wants to understand and have that knowledge. So all four are magnanimous, but of the 4, Krishna says one who's after the pure knowledge, one who wants that relationship with me is the best. So that, that's what we are aspiring to come to.
Doesn't he also say that the purpose of life is spiritual wisdom? Does it?
Yeah.
Or I misread it wrong.
Yeah, it is spiritual wisdom, but then of course, the word expands into, many other details. So what is spiritual wisdom? What is spiritual wisdom, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
And the other analogy I was thinking is, the mother's love being the true love, when she serves that love, it's no expectation, right? So that is how when you serve something, there's no expectation and it's all pure. And that's when you are saying that, when you're serving, it should be pure. Something like that. There's no expectation.
And he had a question.
Nice.
How do you deal with pain?
If you're connected to spiritual, world, you don't feel pain.
We can take for dinner also and have.
Yeah, we'll continue the Q&A. Maybe you can. So do you want to? Oh, I see.
We'll keep it outside and one can come inside and sit.
Okay.
The Q&A can continue. Someone can pass on.
You can go on.
So to answer your question, it depends on so a person who's doesn't have a spiritual perspective. Generally, they deal with it better. Sometimes people eat when they feel a lot of, when they go through bad phase, they eat a lot. So depending on how our conditioning is materially, we deal with pain in different ways. But then for a person who's spiritual, it's actually an opportunity for us to practice our dependence on Krishna. So for example, if I feel, it's not that when you enter a spiritual life, you will not experience any pain. That's, in fact, you will experience. Everybody in the world experiences pain. That's the nature's law. But then, if you are spiritually acute, you'll be acute to handle it better or process it in a better way. You will be in a better position to handle it, like how Arjuna was in a better position. Initially, he was completely broken-hearted. But Krishna gave him the wisdom by which he can process all the events in a better way, from a higher perspective. So spirituality, what it gives you, it equips you to deal with all these situations in a mature way and process in a mature way. So one of the things I personally do is there are many ways. What do you do if you feel pain, pain and harm?
I want to take an example. If you're talking like if you lost somebody very close to you, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. So one of the ways we do it is we have to process the grief. Because it's a lot of, unfortunately, that's the way the world is set up, and it's really hard. It's really hard to but the grief needs to be processed. And the way I personally process it, by chanting the holy names. And by chanting the holy names, by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, what happens is, there's a way you can actually, there's a way you can actually heal yourself. And I process it, so it's not denial. It's a way we have all these emotions and attachments. In fact, Arjuna, when Abhimanyu died, after the whole Bhagavad Gita was spoken, Arjuna cried. Abhimanyu was unfairly killed in the battle. Now Arjuna, he had hunch that something wrong has happened, and then when he came back, he was broken hearted and he cried. Because there is a joke there, looking at him cry, Krishna also cried. And then Arjuna was asking, Krishna, I'm crying because I lost my son. Why are you crying? Krishna tells him, I spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita to you. That is a joke, but and you're crying but the thing is that these emotions of grief has to be processed. But it can be processed in the right way when we are spiritually equipped.
That's why in Gita they say.
One thing I personally find helpful is, many times what happens is when we are hit by trauma, right? Especially very, I'm not talking about every day. Every day we feel some stress, but then when we go through some big loss or some trauma, what happens is there's a lot of emotions also. There's a lot of emotions also that's locked up inside us. That's not come out actually. There's a lot of things that's locked up inside in our emotional body. So the chanting helps us to release all those things and process it, and then we can heal. Personally, I find chanting to be very, very helpful to me. You have to leave?
Yeah.
Oh,
Two kids at home.
okay.
Whatever he said outside, he was asking about if I can serve, like, let's say, if they go and serve on the can it come into the Karma Yoga category? Does it fall into that category of going through Karma Yoga and serving God?
If you're detached, then it falls into the technical definition of Karma Yoga. There's no expectation. So Karma Yoga means there is some detachment from material results. Of course, I think next week we'll also talk about the different paths of yoga, or Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Krishna talks about these different yoga systems. So one can rise above
Since it's not following the path of the yoga, will it?
So I'll tell you why Bhakti Yoga is it's inclusive of everything. Like for example, right, if you allow someone, for example, mother loves a child, then there is karma. Right? There's automatically karma because yeah. Nice to see you.
Yeah. I saw your message and that's how I.
You just came back from
I've not seen him for a long time.
You're not eating anything?
No.
Okay.
One way, I have started dealing with pain or something like that is when you said about something somebody you lost, right? So I took it in such a way that I see it as a karma cleanse, that I must have done something wrong that has made that happen, made that incident
I think we start about.
happened to me. Like it was meant to happen to me because of whatever bad karma. So now that it has happened, my karma is cleansed, and I'm not in negative anymore. That's how I see. For example, say your hemoglobin is very low because you had a very not good not healthy lifestyle. So at that time, what do? Like, do we feel bad that our hemoglobin is low? So we keep on, having that bad lifestyle, or we improve, right? So I think how I see it is, now that my karma is cleansed, like now my hemoglobin is this much low. I'm aware of it. I have to work on getting it better, right? So I should make sure that my next actions would be good enough that such an incident won't happen again. Like that.
Yeah, that's one level. To understand it from karma perspective. But one can also, look at it from other angles also.
I think like you are more inquisitive now. I think like you realize a little bit more better right, in terms of why this happens. So maybe that kind of feeling increasing. So probably like indirectly it's like reducing your sense.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Sorry to be a moment, just put it there.
We'll cover next week. No, but can include is inclusive of everything.
Thank you.
It's inclusive of the mother level that there is karma. There is also Dhyana.
I'm learning more.
So she wants to understand more about the child. She wants to see what the child according to, his village, what it's in life, what it's